Well, my phone battery seems to be almost dead, unfortunately, so I don't know how long I'm gonna have recording here. But I'll record what I can. It's a strange kind of situation that I'm in because, on the one hand, I feel completely lost and just utterly distraught. And then, simultaneously, there's this complete sense of peace and calm and sense of security in knowing that everything is okay and that the solution to this problem is already been found, that it's already here, that I'm already living it, and that prior to this specific crisis I have been living it. And I've spoken about it already in explicit ways and implicit ways, but it basically comes down to just detachment, to this, at least for me, okay, I would say just in general, and so more general, sort of universal prescription, I would say detachment, but it's going to look different for different people, I think. Not that I'm sort of offering advice here. I should be the last person you should take advice from. But for myself, detachment looks like living incredibly minimally, living kind of as a renunciate, almost in a kind of ascetic way. But it's not, it's living as an ascetic without being ascetic. It's externally, it would appear as if I'm putting myself in this state of forced deprivation that I'm inflicting such upon myself, but it's really just what's natural to me. It's sort of the baseline operating way of operating for the way in which I'm most content, the way of operating which yields the least amount of abject emotional states and conflict and drama, interpersonal conflict and drama, situational conflict and drama. And whenever I happen to deviate from that, things don't go so well. Which is which is what's happening, or which is what has been happening. I kind of need to accept that I have these limitations in terms of what I'm able to do, what I'm able to impose upon myself, to cease to hold myself to the standard of the insanity of society. That's kind of the root issue I see, which I've already spoken about. What is the thing that has prompted me to put myself in this position wherein going into it and at each step of the way I was aware that it wasn't the thing to be doing. But I guess old habits die hard. It's been perhaps a lifetime, right, of acting from this place of conditioning, just in a very knee-jerk, instinctive, fearful way. Yeah, it's fear. Fear is what drives this kind of behavior. Fear of disapproval, fear of ostracization. It's not out of desire out of passion or enthusiasm, it's out of fear. And yeah, I mean, those are the motivating forces, right? For humans, on the one hand, you have to very much simplify it. On the one hand, you can be moving towards pleasure, and on the other, you can be moving away from pain. And I don't think there's any other modes of behavior that can't sort of fall underneath that behavior. Maybe I'll have to have more of a think about that. But moving away from pain is much more of a pain is a much more powerful emotion, at least for myself. So it's going to be more of a it's going to be much more motivating to move away from that rather than to move towards pleasure. Although I do, of course, still fall prey to such. I mean, some people will be rolling their eyes here for sure when I say that that I'm not immune towards moving towards pleasure, that it's some sort of reprehensible thing that I'm doing there. Depending on who you are, right? Some people are like, yeah, amen, brother. Don't be trammeled by such trivialities, right? You know better than that. We know better than that. But other people are going to be like, oh, it's, why this sort of prudish, ascetic, just quasi-religious sort of approach to pleasure? Why regard it in such a way through this lens? And for myself, it comes down to just seeing that it isn't ever fulfilling, right? It doesn't ever the itch is never truly scratched. You're only as good as your last success, right? And that the whatever positive feeling, positive emotions that are associated with such, that have been derived from such, just ebb out over time, and then you return to the baseline, and then you have to go out, chase it down again. And when you become aware of this, what's occurring, very cognizant of the mechanics of it, through every step of the way of doing it, it becomes sort of, it's difficult to take oneself seriously, because you're running like a hamster in a wheel, or I don't know, circling around like a shark in a pool, something like this. You're going nowhere. And yet again, it's still something that's difficult to step away from, because it's so habitual. It's so deeply rooted in these the default behaviors of what we are. One really has to be done with these things to really have learned this lesson to the point of just being so thoroughly nauseated by it, nauseated by oneself, going through those emotions, and nauseated by the mechanics of this game itself. One really has to be beyond done, I think. Well, I won't speak so generally like that. I just speak for myself. My experiences are like, yeah, I'm going to have to be really, really, really beyond done to be done with this, to finally be able to remove myself from it. just really, in terms of pleasure, seeing, really, really grasping how unfulfilling and how wholly unsatisfying it is. Because it really is. And again, I think it seems to be, at least from the people I interact with, personally, this seems to be something that I feel much more acutely than these other people I know. It doesn't seem so obvious, such a profound thing to them. Sure, they recognize it, but they still experience value in the pleasure itself. But I guess it's just my lot to not really experience that kind of satisfaction. It has a lot to do with my history and so on. At least I'm thinking specifically here about interpersonal sort of situations and satisfaction and fulfillment that is derived from them. I mean, in the last recording, I sort of get the idea a little bit of what my history has been like in that regard, and it's been one of kind of almost universal rejection and once that's sort of ceased to be the general rule, and I was not so not rejected just right off the bat as I once was, and people more engaging with me and approaching me as more of an equal. There was still on my end a sense of distance and an inability to fully feel that I was connected or able to develop a rapport with this person, and I've come to think of it as the position I find myself when engaging with others as being in a kind of cosmic isolation, a kind of cosmic alienation. Of course, everyone is completely, entirely alone, I think. That is, we are stuck inside what is it, the Rust Cole quote from True Detective. We live our entire lives locked inside a room, alone, dreaming that we're a person, something like that. And so we dream the world, and we're just sort of this brain in a vat, right? And there's never truly any connection with people beyond neurotransmitters that are sort of, presenting in various ways in our brain, creating this illusion of being connected with someone when really it's all internal to us. But I think, there are different degrees of how one is going to experience this fact. They may not even experience any real sense of this absolute isolation whatsoever. But I, of course, feel it, I guess, a fairly significant degree. And just to be more sort of, I don't know if philosophical is the way of putting it, or just say to approach this in a different way. I think we'd all agree that there's parts of ourselves, right, that are wholly incommunicable to others, and what we are able to communicate is, I guess, for the most part, a lesser part of that which we are, that which is going to be relatable to others. And some people, this portion is more substantial than in others, this portion of relatability. And I think those kind of people are going to get more out of human relationships. They're going to be more satisfying and more fulfilling because you'll feel more connected, because more of yourself that is able to be shown and engage with others, with these portions of other people's selves. And so the more kind of, right, if we imagine the iceberg analogy, the more of yourself it is below the waterline, the more unfulfilled you're going to feel. Basically, is what I'm saying. The more alienated you're going to feel, the more alone, the more lonely, even in company. And this is something that I've become very cognizant of when I interact with others. It's frustrating, it's painful, it's lonely, I suppose, and is most of all further fuel for this resolve of mine to, at some point, ultimately entirely detach from any sort of extracurricular participation in the world, anything beyond just bare bones survival, eating, sleeping, defecating, because I don't really know what else there is to do. Everything else is just conflict and dissatisfaction, pain, toil,